You've been at this for over 25 years, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been a while.
You know, as a direct experience with nonprofits' fiscal battles, you've become one of the most sought after trainers and speakers in the nonprofit sector, this particular sector. What are some of the greatest battles you find when it comes to nonprofit implementing a strong investment strategy?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of I've done several kind of webinars or trainings on some of these things, and I think one of the biggest challenges is that when we become fundraisers, when we work in nonprofits, we're really skilled in particular areas, right? But a nonprofit executive director isn't necessarily called to be a fundraiser. They may not have that gifting, that skill, and so we try to encourage them to do some of those pieces, but they may not have all of the pieces necessary. The same is true in financial matters. We may not be skilled in those areas. So, a lot of times, what I see is whether it's the staff or the board, there are a lot of myths around investing. First and foremost, we can't. We are a nonprofit, so we should not make a profit. And I've heard this from people on my team, on the fundraising team. Well, we can't make a profit. I'm like, well, we're not raising money to benefit ourselves. So we don't get extra money because we've done a great job that we put in our bank account or fly to Tahiti because of the work that we've done. But there's nothing in a nonprofit structure that prevents us from raising money or using less money than we've been gifted by the community in order to sustain ourselves in the future. There's nothing that requires a nonprofit to live paycheck to paycheck, and they shouldn't, because it jeopardizes everything that the organization holds dear. It jeopardizes the mission, it jeopardizes the beneficiaries, and it undermines the success of the employees, right? The nonprofit staff, because now they don't have the resources that they need to be able to deliver on the mission, to be able to fundraise well. So those are really kind of the myths that permeate the top level. Then when it comes to investing, it's really about, I need $1 million to invest. No, you don't. You can start with $1,000. You can start with, you know, just figuring out how to modify your budget just a little bit to save more than you spend, right? So there are easy ways of sort of addressing that. I think that, you mentioned behavioral economics. I took this course at through Harvard Extension, which was really eye opening to me. I love the concept of behavioral economics, and one of the key factors that someone won the Nobel Prize for is this idea of loss aversion, and this is true in financial matters no matter what. We're worried about losing money, and so we retreat from doing that. Loss aversion is actually a more powerful motivator than the gains, and so that's one of the key factors for nonprofits. They don't want to lose money. And one of the things I shared in an online forum, this person was saying, well, you should not invest money. You should put your money in a savings account. Well, one of the things that we learned in 2021 was that inflation was 7%. So you put $100,000 into a savings account at the beginning of 2021. At the end of 2021, you have $93,000 in spending power. That's jeopardizing to the mission, right? So we're not able to pay, and everybody's salary is impacted by that, right? We can't pay people their cost of living adjustment. They have to pay more for the Domino's pizza or for gas or whatever the circumstance is, but we can't pay them more because we don't have those resources. So I think it comes down to, if I were to boil it down, it really comes down to the nonprofit scarcity mindset, that we think about scarcity, not abundance. And that's really the shift that we need to make at the board level and at the staff level to really be able to deliver on mission impact.
I was raised in a culture of founding nonprofits.
Mm,
And within that culture, I'm about second generation. I saw my father travel the world opening up nonprofits, faith-based nonprofits, nonprofits that are orphanages and schools and this
mhm,
type of thing. And yet the scarcity mindset was something that permeated the organization as well. They lived and raised funds just for the next step because there are so many getting founded all the time. It was like we never had any access at all.
sure.
And it built a real wall of not being able to understand this conversation in those early years. And so often, as I've matured, I've wished I could have taken what I've learned back, 15 years and say, if I could have known this, like if I would have met you when I was 32, you and I would have had some fun together.
Absolutely.
But I got a feeling that when I was 32, you were still in university though. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's good there's good counsel with regard to that. I'm on the board of a missions organization. I talk about this with a lot of faith-based organizations. They feel like they've taken a vow of poverty when they do missions work, ministry work, faith-based work. And the reality is that you know, a lot of faith traditions talk about stewardship. They talk about long-term planning. There's a parable of talents, right? That inform us about what does it look like to plan for the future. And I come back to, if you're a faith-based organization or not, if the mission is important to you, then making sure that you can deliver on that mission longer term is important. Now, some people will say, well, we want to work ourselves out of a job and we don't want to have to, do this work. And I love that idea. I love that enthusiasm. But the reality is that for some causes, like hunger or homelessness, there will always be people who suffer from hunger or homelessness. Our goal is to minimize their time affected by that and to be able to have sort of immediate responses. We're still going to need help there. And things like art is a really good example of where we're never done. And I think art is, art, music, those types of things are so important to our communities, but we can't ever say, well, we've solved that problem. That doesn't exist in in the world of art or music or something like that, right? We always need creative energy in our lives. So I think it's really just a function of shifting that mindset and really rethinking, if you will, how you approach funding that mission in the future.